What we're going to do is have the students come forward and take a seat at the front table here on the podium, and you will have about 5 minutes each to present, and I will facilitate the discussion. So let me ask the students of Professor Will Adams to come forward and take a seat. Tyler Tomaszewski, Tara Toth, and Renee Waklasty. If you would please come forward and choose a seat, starting at the end, and then we'll move in, all right? We could have the student from Professor Elizabeth Cochrane, Avi Scully. Is Avi with us? Please come forward and have a seat. Thanks, Avi. And we have the students from Professor Michael Rudar's class, Lisha Battle, Henry Hansen, and Madeline Winiarski. If you would like to come forward, please, and take a seat. And we're going to be pulling up their posters. Please just come up and have a seat. That's great. Just follow in line. And we have a microphone for you. Are the microphones live, Mike? Yes. Excellent. So here we are, students. All semester long in your classrooms, your professors have been working with you. You've had one of the IOC teaching assistants to assist you to prepare your work. Your posters are magnificent. But we're selecting some of these posters for presentations. So on your Vita, you no longer just have those of you here at the front. You have a lovely poster on your Vita at an academic conference. But now at this global academic conference, you can also add that you were a formal presenter. And if those of you who presented a poster or are doing a presentation submit an essay and it's included, then you will have an essay. It could be a threefold whammy on your Vita. Be competitive. Be leaders. And as Megan Chappell said last night, be thought leaders to change our world. So let's have the first slide of Professor Adams' class, Tyler Tomaszewski. Do we have that uploaded? Tyler, you have 5 minutes. Just stay where you are and speak into the microphone.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tyler. I just want to say it's an honor to present today. Thank you for having me. So today I'm talking about ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is a branch of feminism that also sees various concerns for environmental protection and improvement. And it seeks to understand the intersectionality between the exploitation of both ecology and women. Put simply, intersectionality is a concept that says all oppression is linked. And ecofeminism sees that our social and environmental issues are really not separate at all. Modernization has largely impacted our natural climate change, and especially our perspectives on how we live in relation to nature. Today, we tend to view nature as wild and disorderly and dangerous. We see it as something that needs to be dominated and controlled. And the same can be said for women too, throughout history and still even today in a lot of ways. The mistreatment of nature and oppression of women represent the same unjust control of human and non-human existences. We see nature as a resource for us to damage and exploit due to our self-centered and human-centered values and beliefs. Although these sociocultural values and beliefs are a constructed reality, and anything constructed can be deconstructed. There is a language popularly used today that uses degrading animal terms for women and degrading feminizing words for nature. Growing up, I know I was taught, and I believe most people were too, to address the environment as Mother Nature. But what we don't realize growing up is that this language only reinforces gender stereotypes and hierarchies. And for women, there are terms such as chick or foxes and many other terms that put women down. This language we use just reinforces and further constructs our cultural beliefs and values. Ecofeminism looks to build a healthier relationship between humans and nature. By decreasing our human-centeredness, we can then deepen our awareness and compassion of human and non-human existences. Ecofeminism is an activist and academic movement that aims to eliminate domination over others and our planet. And in order to do so, we must realize that we are relational beings, and that our lives within our natural world can only be maintained through cooperation and a mutual love and care for our planet and others. Thank you.
Wow, what a great start. Thanks, Tyler. Now we have Tara Toth. Tara, would you do the same, please?
So I would like to begin by framing climate resiliency as Earth's ethical call. And I think it is our inherent responsibility to respond to this call. Eric Fromm's Pathology of Normalcy addresses that the collective way of life isn't necessarily the right one. Just because most people are estranged from nature and encapsulated by the grand illusion that we're somehow elevated above the natural world, doesn't mean that this approach to life is the least bit sane. For in all reality, it is psychologically distressing and debilitating even. We're missing something here, something that can't be replaced, and we're beginning to sacrifice the natural world for something man-made. I think that our current moment can be best defined as the technological age, and I like to characterize that by technological infiltration into all spheres of life, something that's commonly unreflectively accepted. Even kids today like to play inside because that's where all the electrical outlets are. This is clearly affecting generations to come, and I think that a term coined by Richard Louv illustrates this pretty well. It's a play on attention deficit disorder, it's nature deficit disorder, and not only is our loss of interaction with nature bad for us, but it's also bad for nature. Our current moment can also be characterized by the 6th mass extinction that we're currently suffering, and I think that this really opens the door for grief work and subsequent change. Heartbreak that we experience from this grief can be real wisdom breaking through if we allow it to. We can begin to make this shift from our anthropomorphic self-centeredness, anthropocentric self-centeredness to anthropomorphism. And if we can make this shift by means of critical self-reflection, then we can begin to cultivate a healthier relationship with nature, which will lead to more responsible and compassionate actions in relation with the natural world. We're all capable of responding to Earth's ethical call, and it is a collective responsibility. But it starts with each and every one of us, right here, right now. Thank you.
Great, Tara. You'll be a great teacher one day. All right, Rainier, you're next. Rainier Waklasti.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Renee Waklachi, and today I will be talking to you guys about environmental and political and eco-warrior Wangari Maathai and the beauty of her subtlety. Wangari Maathai is a native to Kenya, where she spent most of her life, outside of her time that she spent in the United States to further her education. Wangari Maathai is internationally recognized for her fight for democracy, human rights, and environmental conservation. She is also the founder of the Greenbelt movement, where she planted over 45 million trees across Kenya to combat deforestation, soil erosion, and to generate income for women and their families. Wangari Maathai understood that the oppression of the land was an oppression for the women and for all, and especially women. She spoke on behalf of women's rights and highlighted the impact of environmental injustice on the lives of women. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004 for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace. She understood that the land was sacred, and those who were in charge of the land, primarily the women who were known to help cultivate the land, care for the land, and put back into the land, were sacred. And if they weren't treating the land with respect, they also weren't treating the women there with respect, hence why she was fighting for the rights of not only the land, but the women there too. She planted seeds of hope and seeds of change, similar to what we're doing here today while we're talking about climate resiliency, which is something that we also discussed in our class with Dr. Adams. And just understanding that the small things that we do, the subtle things that we do, have such a profound effect on not only us right now, but generations to come. And she really highlighted the importance of that with her movement, because a lot of people, even some people that I talked to, kind of mentioned like, oh, all she ever did was plant trees. But no, it's much bigger than that. It means much more than just planting something, like trees or anything like that. But she also said, and it was beautiful, it's the little things that citizens do that will make the difference. My little thing is planting trees. But yeah, so that's Wangari Maathai.
Superb. My goodness gracious. Could I ask Professor Will Adams to stand if he's here? Will, thank you for leading these geniuses forward. And could Professor Will Adams' students stand? Those of the students from Professor Adams' class, please stand to see who you are. Some of you are here. Excellent. Wow. Thank you for coming today. This is a spectacular start. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes or so having a little conversation on these topics. And I'm going to ask the three speakers, so think ahead, to have one single outcome that you think would be great if we could take action on it. And I'm going to ask the three of you to say it, one outcome from your topic that we could take action on to inspire us. So it's not just teaching us, it's motivating us to change the world, as Professor Chappell said last night. And then, when we have the 3 points, you're going to talk about these at the table for a little bit, and then we're going to have some feedback from you because we have some roaming microphones. All right, let's go in reverse. Rainey, you go first. What action point would you encourage us?
I guess one action point, it kind of ties into what my peer said, but Wangari Maathai was a huge advocate for peace, and I believe that through a lot of the things that we've learned about as well, that finding peace within ourselves and understanding the importance of it within many societies and many nations really has a huge impact on how we treat not only ourselves, but the environment in which we live in. And if we can take action within ourselves in a very intentional and meaningful way, only then will we be able to further the peace within our world. So.
Excellent,
yeah.
Lovely. Rainier, just think of what's going on in Ukraine just now. If we had peace, the environment would be a much better place.
Right.
Beautiful point. Let's go to Tara. What action point would you give us?
I guess I would say working on our mental state and cultivating a healthier relationship with the rest of nature by starting with adopting the right attitude, because that's really what's going to lead to appropriate subsequent change and adopting the right policies in retrospect to climate resiliency. So really just shifting away from this human self-centeredness and trying to become more world-centered and realize that we're really just a mode of nature. We're not elevated above anything. We're really just a mode of the natural world.
Thanks, Tara. That's a very shrewd point. In other words, it's our mental state. If we see ourselves dominating nature, we ain't going to win this battle. If we see ourselves as being nature, transforming ourselves and nature from the inside, that's a really cool point. And let me now go to Tyler. What action point would you give us, Tyler?
Just going off of what Tara said, I think it's just really important to understand that we are connected. We are in relation with nature. We are in relation with others. And just deepening our compassion and, the mutual love and care for others and the world around us is really important to cultivating this resiliency we have in for our climate.
Thank you, Tyler. Being connected. That's what Dr. Chappell was talking about last night. If we see ourselves as connected, then deforestation somewhere else in the world, it impacts us, it changes us. In case you haven't noticed, a major impact of deforestation through climate change created a little funny thing. A little bat came out of the forest and gave us COVID. Exactly what you're saying. It's all connected. Mm-hmm. So let's take these 3 points: peace, our mental approach to being with nature, and seeing our connection in nature. Each of your tables, just spend a few moments talking now about those. And what I'm wanting to ask you to give us from your table, just one idea from each table. Given what you've heard, what would you suggest if you had the authority, if you were a nation leader, what would you suggest that we should be doing to have climate resiliency? So take just a few moments of your tables to talk about those 3 topics: peace, our mental communication, integration with nature, and our connectedness across nature. All right, just a few moments, and then I'll lead you in discussion.
Hello, my name's Glory, and we talked about something similar like the previous table. We talked about how educating people would work because depending on what area you are in, people get educated differently. Like lower income areas get not the same quality of education as those who are in wealthy suburban areas. And along with education, there are things such as outdoor school, which help children enhance their education while they're outdoors in nature, which is something that many people can't afford because of the cost of the schools. So implementing things like that for like students from all area, regardless of where they live, would be something that would be beneficial in order to like respect nature.
Aha! A very nice point, Glory, from your table. Thank you, respecting nature. Okay, would Tara or Rainier want to take that up?
I think you made a great point that we really do need a respect for nature because today we really do see like a domination over a lot of things. You know, industrialization and has impacted a lot of things. There are deforestations and things that we just really take control over, and I think it is really important to understand that this is just hurting us more than helping us in the long term, and I think it's important to really get outside and understand that we are connected to this earth and what we do to it can harm or help us.
Cool, thank you. And one comment from this corner table over here, way in the corner. Is there a microphone there? If you could identify your name, who would like to speak? Give us your wisdom.
Hi, my name is Sam, and our table talked a lot about looking into different infrastructure methods, such as public transportation, because especially in Pittsburgh, we're a very car-oriented city, and that obviously takes up a lot of fossil fuels and emissions. So we would probably actively look into looking at like encouraging like walking, but also looking into better public transportation methods.
Cool, thank you, Sam. Good observation from your table. Renee, would you like to take that up?
Hi, Sam. I totally agree with that. Honestly, lowering our carbon footprint, I believe, is very important to our environment and something that's easily overlooked given that these are just everyday things that we do. So we don't really understand the significance of just walking, not only to save our earth, but also the impact that it has like on our well-being if we use different modes of transportation that are, you know, way more natural in the long run. It'll help with things such as like our mental health, the peace that we have within ourselves, and just everything, like the main 3 points that we brought up, so yeah.
Okay, thank you, Renier. A nice reply. Now, you three think of an outcome to conclude your session. We're going to move on to another group of students. So I want each of you to say a few comments, but I want one final table. We'll go to the other end of the room, this table here. Who would like to speak? Give us your name, please.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. We just like the idea that we need to spread mental awareness about climate change to everyone because nature is a part of us. So like, I feel like there's a lot of people that don't realize that things that are happening in, like, for example, California, like where there's forest fires in the Amazon rainforest, even though that's not here, it affects us as a whole, and we need to spread like awareness that nature is a part of us and that we can't leave here, like this is our home. So no matter what happens, it'll always affect us.
Excellent. That's a really nice observation. So let me make a comment on that before I go to the three speakers finally. That idea of our mental connection with nature is incredibly important. You mentioned the Amazon forest because they are known as the lungs of the planet. In other words, those trees breathe in the poison and give us out oxygen. And the odd thing about that, when you deforest, you know, if you take down the trees, as they're doing in Brazil, to bring in farming, especially cattle. Why do they bring in cattle? That's odd. That's a far away thing. Because we go to McDonald's. That's why they bring in cattle. We eat the cattle. But what's the price? Well, the trees, they don't know because they're now cut down and burnt. But eventually the farming land dries up. And when it does, this is what is astounding. The trees will not grow back. It turns into desert-style landscape. Well, we want to be connected with that, all right. Jonathan, next time I eat a burger, I'll be thinking of that point. That's a very cool observation. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back. We'll begin with Renier. What's your final comment?
I guess to draw off, Jonathan is your name, your point. I guess bringing forth awareness to things such as other parts of the world and issues that they're facing, for we all are interconnected. Similar to my presentation on Wangari Maathai, like, I don't live in Kenya, and I'm not even in the time in which this took place, but knowing about it and understanding it truly made a big impact on the way that I view nature, the relationship I have with nature, and only gave me ideas for ways we can further connect with nature and the impact that I can further make with it. So I guess my closing comment would just be like, again, being intentional and being impactful in everything that you do, no matter how big or how small you think that it is, because it makes a difference.
Thanks, Renier. Wonderful. Tara?
I guess my ending comment would just be to really try to promote self-reflection and apply critical thought to everything that you do. And really just try to be intentional, going off of what Renee is saying, because no matter what, everything that you do really is having an impact not only on you, but the rest of nature. And it really just starts with trying to be a good person. You know, don't litter. Try to like pick up something that you see on the street, you know, and just try to have a better attitude in relation to it. Care, you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tyler, you get the final comment.
I guess I just want to say, like, all in all, that we really do need to understand that we are not separate from nature, and, you know, other than just doing the basic picking up litter and things that we have always been told to recycle, I think it's also important to really get outside and view nature as something that we are connected with, and, you know, see the animals, the birds, and the trees, and look at them all, that they are with us, and they are living things that are important to our human existence.
Thank you, Tyler. And students, please stay where you are, because you're not done yet. When we get to the end of the session, we're going to involve you again. So a word of thanks and an applause for a very wonderful group. Thank you. So we're now going to a different class. This is the class of Professor Elizabeth Cochrane, and we have Ave Scully. You want to come up and load the slide for us, Erjan, please? Avi, are you there and ready to go? Just give us a second to load your slide so we can follow along what you're saying.
All right. Okay. Hello, my name is Ava Schuley, and for today I will be discussing deforestation, specifically in the Amazon rainforest. One of the main causes of deforestation has to deal with carbon emissions and road development. So, ever since the 90s, road development has been taking place in the Amazon, and they are constructing the BR-163 highway, which is used for trade between European and Asian markets. However, doing so has deforested up to 30 to 40% of the forest by 2020. Because of this, carbon dioxide emissions will rise 0.25 degrees Celsius, and I actually didn't know this, but that's 32.45 degrees Fahrenheit worldwide, and that's just if the Amazon was all together. So far, 10 to 20% of this rainforest has been wiped out by forest fires, which only increases the amount of CO2 released into the air. And what does this do? So far, one of the main reasons why I wanted to focus on this was due to the fact that animals are endangered because of what we've done to the Amazon rainforest, especially through forest fires. This rainforest accounts for 10% of every known animal species in the world, such as, but not limited to, the jaguar, spider monkey, harpy eagle, and the pink river dolphin. And that makes it the most biodiverse region in the world. And in a recent study of BAE, or BELM, area of endemism, or BAE is endemic, the birds in the Amazon will lose an average of 73% of sustainable areas by 2050, with at least 6 of the 15 native bird species having less than 10% of the sustainable areas. And that leading to extinction. And to this day, and currently, 56% of these species are endangered. So one of my favorite ways to make a point about issues like these is through the use of graphs. And the one on the bottom left corner uses a color spectrum to display how many plants and vertebrates have been wiped out due to forest fires. In the red, between 3,000 to 4,000, plants is pretty much varied throughout the Amazon. But with vertebrates, there's a lot of 800, it's about 800 different types of species wiped out, but towards where Peru is, between 1,000 to 1,200 of these species have been wiped out because of forest fires. And throughout the years, there is another color spectrum that displays how these fires have impacted the biodiversity of the Amazon. Most of them happened between 2005 to 2006 in the southeastern end, but they vary throughout, but they still occur in various spots in 2019, like in the north. Then we have these 4 beautiful graphs. So graphs A and C here are similar, where they display the years between 2000 to 2019 on the x-axis, as well as the cumulative area impacted by the fire in kilometers squared, as well as the number of species impacted for both the trees and the vertebrates, which is why there's a little spider monkey displayed here. And so all the cumulative area impacted by the fire is displayed through this slate gray color, with these little percentiles, less than 5%, 10%, and 15%, while leaning towards the bottom, it's still an issue. And it goes the same for the different types of vertebrates. And then, in graphs B through D, in order to realize how much damage we've done, this information is taken into a scatter plot, where the cumulative area impacted by the fire, or the land, represents the x-axis, and the species that have been affected through the y-axis. And if you notice, with the scatter plots and the coefficient lines, the correlation coefficient / coefficient of determination, it's a strong correlation because these numbers round up to 1, which means it's a strong correlation, and the relationship between how much area has been lost through the fires versus how many species of trees and animals have been affected is strong, and it should be alerted, to everyone. Thank you very much.
Eva, sorry for mispronouncing your name. I think I got the surely right, the Italian aspect of it.
Yes.
Eva, so thank you. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
You will have a very proud Professor Elizabeth Cochrane. Elizabeth, would you like to stand? And would Elizabeth's class stand as well to show us where you are? Okay. Professor Cochrane's class, well done, thank you. And a special shout out to Ava. There were some last minute changes and Ava stood in without an awful lot of notice. Well done, Ava, for doing this. Now, let me congratulate you on, this is a fantastic poster. It's, the quality of the poster is quite impressive in terms not only of the graphics, but the content. Good for you.
Thank you very much.
It really is. It shows a tremendous amount of work. I mean, all of you who have been working on posters, you know this. To do a poster of that quality, my goodness gracious, we tip our hats to you that you are truly a leader in teaching us about this today. So thank you. Now, I'm going to spend a few moments now with you, not going into groups, but to give you a chance of directly inquiring questions with Ava this time. We'll keep the PowerPoint up. This is a rich PowerPoint. Look at the color graphics and the little spider monkey. Our hearts go out to the, I mean, they're dying in huge numbers. Who would like to ask a question, changing the dynamic a little? Put your hand up so we can see who would like to ask a question. I'm sure you have many ideas.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie. I want to ask you what made you interested in this topic. Obviously, it's very important, but for it to catch someone's eye and actually have you go in depth like this, I just wanted to know what your interest was.
Great,
Thanks, Mackenzie. On you go, Ava.
Great question, Mackenzie. So, ever since fourth grade, I've always been interested in learning about different types of animals, and I somehow got very fascinated with different types of animals that live in different regions of the world. And the Amazon rainforest has to be one of my personal favorites because it's so lush. There's so many species, and it's a very interesting array of animals and birds. And I like looking at all the colors. It just makes me feel relaxed in some way, kind of tranquil. But when I heard about the fact that deforestation is about to happen, and the fact that if the Amazon was all together and leading into these savanna-like pastures for farming or whatever, it's surprising. And when you, Mr., mentioned that the trees don't grow back, I had to mention it because to many of those species, especially since they're tree-dwelling animals, like the sloth and a lot of tree frogs, that's their home. And we need to do all it takes to protect it.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Anyone else want to ask another question? We have room for one more. We have this table over here. If you could take the microphone over there, please. That was a great response, Ava. Thank you. Mm-hmm. What's your name now?
Hi, I'm Liz. Great presentation. I just wanted to ask, are we directly affected by what happens in the Amazon rainforest and deforestation in the Amazon rainforest? And if there's any other very integral parts in the country or the world that is deeply affected by deforestation?
Mm-hmm. Great question, Liz. So, as we may know, we do not live in South America. So we may not be aware that this is actually going on. But for those that live in South America, like in Brazil, in Paraguay, in Peru, it's important to preserve these lands. And this is not the only area that has been affected by deforestation. I mean, just to go off the route of carbon emissions and forest fires, Australia recently had a huge forest fire in early 2020 that really not only impacted the forests and any aspect of nature, but to literally everyone living there. So, and it's the same for like California wildfires. While they might not be the most considered like nature, there's still national parks that we need to preserve just because it's sacred land and animals live there. And a bunch of animals live there. And the way that most of these animals have been dropping in its populations and going extinct, I want to bring awareness to that.
Thank you, Ava. A lovely response to a great question. Thank you, Liz, for that question. Congratulations, Ava. That's the end of Professor Cochrane's class. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Cochrane and students, for inspiring such wisdom and great teaching. And my general apologies to you if I get your name wrong. Sometimes with a Scottish accent, I can't quite pronounce your name, so you might not be hearing my Scottish accent properly, but you'll get used to the intonation. All right. So we're now going to Professor Michael Rudar's class, and we begin with Leisha Battle. Leisha, you ready? Let's upload Leisha's slide. Just before you start, Leisha, just give us a second till we upload your slide.
Hello? Okay.
Leisha, have I got your name right?
No, sir, you did not.
What is it?
It's Leisha, but you could, if you can't.
Leisha, thanks.
Oh, yes, Leisha. Is it up or no?
Just a second.
Well,
I think we have it now. Okay? Or do we? No?
Yep, hold on, now we do.
how y'all doing? Y'all doing good?
There we go.
Yeah, we're ready now, Leisha.
Sorry.
You ready? Hey, everybody. My name is Leisha Battle. As you know, I'm in Professor Rudar's class. But you don't know, I am an out-of-state student from Florida, and so I dedicate my PowerPoint slide back home. Water pollution is a major problem, especially here in Pittsburgh, so I wanted to talk about a water pollution problem back at home, red tide. Red tide is a plant-like organism that grows out of control. Red tide is an event that occurs on a coastline of Florida and Texas of overgrown algae that changes the water color. Red tide is very hazardous with toxic chemicals to humans and sea life. What has caused this problem? Red tide is caused by coastal pollution from contributions of various runoff such as human sewage waste, agricultural, along with rising ocean temperatures. Due to these factors, various of runoff cause the red tide to last longer over the years. There are approximately 80 species of aquatic plants that also influence the harmful algae blooms within the ocean as well as freshwater. Upwelling currents brings the right type of nutrition to cause a large scale of harmful algae blooms, most of all global climate change. Consequences of red tide, both marine life and humans are affected by the toxic chemicals that are produced from the red tide. Powerful toxins within the ocean, known as brevin toxin, attacks the central nervous system, killing fish, shellfish, mammals, and birds. Chemicals within the air leads to respiratory irritation for humans, causing serious illness. Red tides are reoccurring every year, lasting longer than the previous. Solutions for this red tide. NOAA 20 satellite observes forecasts to detect red tides before they reach the coast. Proactive programs to control and maintain sewage water pollution and sewage infrastructure. Minimizing using chemical-based fertilizers, going organic, and to become more ocean-friendly. These programs are enforcing water quality standards and regulations for communities, and most of all, to recycle. Now, I added in my last corner how to stay safe, especially for upstate people that travel during spring break. I had 2 roommates who came back home who was sick because they didn't know what red tide is. So when you travel during spring break or to the summer to the southern states, this is how you stay safe, and it was to help. And also, your actions can also help stop red tide. Avoid swimming around dead organisms. Do not eat or harvest distressed dead organisms within areas. So when you go to restaurants, you need to be mindful for the shellfish or fish organisms that you order. And most of all, limit activities away from beach. There may be signs that says beach cannot be open today, and you should be very aware of the signs. Sometimes people will still go to the beach. Those signs are put in place for your safety as well.
and most of all, check marine forecasts and beach conditions for beaches before attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Leisha. That's a wonderful presentation. How many of you have heard of red tides in Florida? Hands up, please. Wow, a good number of you. Well, those of you who have not, you're going to hear a lot more about it, not just because of what Leisha's been telling us. This is becoming increasingly a problem, and it's going to be on news programs, all the more so, not just in Florida. So thank you, Leisha. So let's go to Henry Hansen. You're up next, Henry, if you're ready to go. Just give me a second till we get the slide uploaded, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Henry Hansen, and I'm in Professor Rudar's Democracy and Justice class. And today I'm going to be talking to you about climate change. To begin with, climate change is something that affects everyone. Climate change threatens our health by affecting the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the weather we experience. It makes it a question of justice. Therefore, it requires action and effort from everybody. Hence, democracies are important for being a catalyst for implementing climate change mitigation efforts. That being said, it's important to know that some of the causes of climate change. Waste creates methane from anaerobic decay, which increases greenhouse gas emissions. Breeding, cattle are the #1 agricultural source of greenhouse gases. They create lots of methane. Each year, a single cow will belch about 220 pounds of methane. Methane from cattle is shorter-lived than carbon dioxide, but 28 times more potent in warming the atmosphere. Deforestation, cutting down forests causes a lot of carbon to be released. Industry, the burning of fossil fuels creates 23% of greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the consequences of climate change are this sea level rising. The sea level has risen 8 to 9 inches since 1880, and the seas are predicted to rise a foot by 2050. Extreme weather conditions, this will lead to more droughts, hurricanes, and diseases. Increased precipitation, heavy precipitation events across most of the United States, for example, heavier rain and snowstorms. The potential impacts of heavy precipitation include crop damage, soil erosion, and an increase in flood risk due to heavy rains. This causes a lot of health problems for people around the world. Risks to the nature. Subarctic boreal forests tree lines will retreat north as temperatures rise. Some things to combat climate change are use the car less. If it's close, try walking, biking, or public transportation. It's not worth using that greenhouse gases and emissions. Eat veggies. Producing plant-based foods generally results in fewer greenhouse gases. In fact, producing a plant-based meat emits up to 90% fewer greenhouse gases than producing conventional meat. Just one plant-based meal can save the same amount of carbon emissions it takes to drive across the country. Try not to use plastic. Recycled glass uses 40% less energy than manufacturing new glass, and up to 80% of all recycled glass can be reclaimed. And that's my poster.
Thank you, Henry. No, wait. You said something about the cow belch 18, 20 times. What was that again?
Yeah. Cattle are the #1 source of agricultural greenhouse gases. Each year, a single cow belches about 220 pounds of methane. And methane from cattle is shorter lived than carbon dioxide, but 28 times more potent in warming.
28 times?
Yeah, more potent from warming the atmosphere.
Goodness gracious. You learn something every day. Terrifying. I mean, that's not a farm, that's a single cow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, we've got a problem with our cows. Stop eating burgers. Okay, thanks, Henry. That was a great presentation. Let me now go to Madeline Winiarski. Madeline, just give us a second to re-upload your slide.
Hi, my name is Madeline Winiarski, and I'm just going to talk about a few points that stood out to me when thinking about climate resiliency. So I had this quote, global environmental changes and the resultant health impacts affect our ability to work and enjoy life, ultimately reducing our lifespan, compromising our ability to look after our families and friends, and reducing the production of food and goods. So this diagram talks about social and economic impact of climate change. Some of those are the cost of adapting coastal areas to rising sea levels, loss of the capacity to work due to heat, more wars to gain access to limited resources, fresh water will be in short supply in some areas, relocation of whole towns, shrinking productivity of harvests, prices of basic foodstuff and consumer goods will rise. Extreme meteorological phenomena will cause widespread poverty, and diseases will spread due to higher temperatures. And then my last point was just something that I thought was important was about clean energy systems. Decarbonization of the energy system coupled with decentralized, digitized electrification technologies could give 1 billion more people access to modern energy services. Yeah.
Okay, Madeline, thank you. A round of applause for everybody. Great work. All right, could Professor Rudar stand, please? Standing. And Professor Rudar students, please stand. Do we see who you are? All right, cool. Thank you, students. Look what you've generated. You've given us 3 fabulous presentations, great wisdom. I'm going to ask you 3 students, Leisha and Henry and Madeline, to think of an outcome, a specific outcome, and I'll get you to say that in a minute and we'll do the same conversation. These 3 PowerPoint slides are quite remarkable. They show a tremendous sophistication and range of issues, not just the topics that we're dealing with, but the range within the topic. So students, you really did your homework in this. I really appreciate it. It's a tremendous commitment that you have shown us, and not only teaching it well with your presentation, but giving us great leadership as well. All right, so let me begin. I'll go with you, Madeline, since you finished last. What would be a single outcome you'd like us to sort of put into practice from your presentation?
Yeah, I'd probably say something that I find more important is the clean energy systems. I think it's important to give a lot of people access to some things that we take for granted.
All right, clean energy. Thank you, Madeline. Henry, let's go to you. What would be an outcome that you would like to consider?
I'd say become an inspiration to others by taking a stand and like leading by example. So like recycling, cleaning up litter, and just walking more and encouraging people to walk and use the car less and things like that.
That's interesting. In other words, we can do stuff ourselves individually. Mm-hmm. Less of car, more of recycling, more of walking. Yeah. Cool. And let me go to Leisha. What sort of action point would you give us?
Since the problem red tide comes based on from water pollution, I would say for industry stop dumping their sewage or fertilizer or like put components into the rivers. That's like a major factor. And like Henry said, recycling is a major key because plastic is a huge problem for us. And just having more regulations towards buildings to not contaminate the water for water pollution.
Excellent. And I'm going to go to the table discussion in a moment. But Leisha, I have a question from you. I was surprised, obviously, with what Henry said. I've got a surprise question for you. You said people walk into the red tide to continue swimming?
Yes, people don't know how to read the sign when the sign needs to be read, point blank, period. And so you really do, reading signs is important, especially during March when people go down for spring break. And especially when you see dead organisms on the beach, if that's not a hint, then I don't know what the hint is towards for you. But especially reading the sign and just being mindful. But knowing about red tide is crucial because red tide does happen during the summer months. And you will see from the effect of red tide that a lot of us, even Floridians, can't even go to the beach. So don't expect that when you come down for a break that the beaches already have access. There's other things that you could do for fun, but you just really need to be mindful for red tide and especially read the signs.
Cool, thank you. And let me ask a clarifying question of you, Madeline, as well, that caught my eye. You're talking about recarbonization of the energy systems. Is that the same as green energy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just a little
No,
bit.
windmills and things like that?
Yeah.
Just say a little bit more of that. Like, what would be that recarbonization for energy? What would we use instead of fossil fuels?
I mean, I guess you could use solar panels, the windmills, wind turbines, stuff like that.
Right, okay, that entire movement. All right. Okay, so we're going to go into your table discussions. You've heard the 3 points: clean energy, move by example, and groundwater. That's red tides in Florida, but it's all over. So talk for a few moments, and then I'll get you to give us your questions to the panel. Take about 5 minutes.
One of the things that we talked about in the presentations was like water pollution. And water pollution is something that happens because of corporations. And even though corporations set out these plans, kind of like greenwashing, saying that, oh, we have these things and we're going to follow this in order to make a more green plan and make it like more appealing for people to go into it and like make business with them. I feel like despite greenwashing, I think people should like stand up against these corporations and tell them that, like, despite you saying these things, you're doing the complete opposite, kind of them being hypocrites of like their own plans.
Excellent point, Gloria. They're still at it. Leisha, would you like to take that up about water pollution in terms of what you were referring to regarding your earlier point about the groundwater and so on?
I completely agree with what she said. People are being hypocrites towards the situation. If you look outside, like, for example, during the tours, they said that the school is by a river. That is not a river. It's not blue. It's not no shade of blue. It is green. That ain't supposed to be green. And so due to that prime example, people are not taking action. People say they will take action, but it won't start taking action unless you are that person that starts taking action towards pollution. So if you say you're going to stop water pollution, then you should be a prime example of recycling. You should be a prime example of setting up towards those corporations who belittle people when they vouch towards water pollution. And you'll know once that change starts happening, especially here in Pittsburgh, when that river starts seeing blue again and you can see crystal blue within that river.
Cool, thank you very much, great point. Thank you for your commentary. Let's go over here. I see someone from this table. This is Professor Rudar's table. What's your name?
My name's Alexa Murphy, and I was wondering, who would you say is most responsible for contributing to the contaminated water?
Okay, again, contaminated water. Let's ask Madeline. Would you like to take something up about water contamination? Because this is a form of green energy. That water is one of the amazing things about contaminated water. It's not just drinking and bathing in it, but clean energy water can be, for hydroelectric purposes and otherwise, very helpful. Any ideas yourself, Madeline, on that?
Kind of just what she had touched upon. You have just a lot of places polluting the water and just not making it like a clean environment that it should be. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we're going to stop now because we're nearly at the end, and I've asked the panel to deliberate and give us one action point each And because Henry's not yet spoken, could you give us your piece from this group here? Henry, would you give us your action point, please?
It was to change your lifestyle to reduce your carbon footprint, and just live by example and help the environment as much as you can.
Now, there's genius. See how short an observation that is? The wisdom: reduce your carbon footprint. If we can do that individually, consistently, your children are going to be much happier. You're going to help mitigate the terrible problems that your children are going to face. Reduce our carbon footprint through all of the things that we've been suggesting. Okay, who's from the second group of two? Who's speaking for you two? At the very end,
So first and foremost, we are relational beings, but it's important to recognize that our relational needs extend beyond human contact. And we can think of Kant's categorical imperative here and take it one step farther by treating and approaching nature the way that we would want to be treated. Cultivating this respect for the world really is the first step in promoting and capturing sociocultural change that is so imperative in our current moment. Thank you.
That's outstanding. The way being treated, the way we want to be treated. Don't think you. Of course, that's important. Think your children. What are they going to say to you 15 years from now? What were you doing? We're dying here with poison. Treat us the way we would want to treat ourselves. That's a fabulous point. Very nice, thank you. And let me go finally to Eva or to Renee. What was your comment?
Our final outtake is just kind of be resourceful. Use your resources to really educate yourself on what's going on, and to tie onto your point, Glory, about just kind of understanding that sometimes it is bigger than us and it can be corporations. You have the power alone to talk to these corporations to put forth, some sort of action. Ava mentioned a resource, WWF, that you can use to kind of gain more insight on what's going on in terms of deforestation and what's happening in the rainforest. And I highly encourage you guys to take the initiative to do something of that nature. It's small, it's little, but again, it's still profound and very impactful. That way you're aware of what's taking place around us and the things that you can do. Because just because we're one person doesn't mean that we can't make, a greater impact on what's taking place.
I can't better that word. That's a fabulous final word. You get the end of the session. Thank you, Renee. An applause for everybody. Thank you. All right, students, please go back to your tables. So that's the end of our session, everyone. Thank you so much to the three professors, Professor Adams and Cochrane and Rudar, for inspiring us. Bye-bye. We'll be coming back for the streaming group. We're coming back in about 10 minutes with our next group of students.